Good evening. This is Law's 11057 Introduction to Law. This is Week 8, Term 2, 2017. My name is John Milburn. We fortunately have a number of people on the line once again, and this has been a great cohort. Thank you very much again for the support and encouragement that you've been giving to each other and to me. I appreciate it very much. All right, so we've been talking about legal research a lot. This will be the last night of legal research. I want to start by talking about Queensland Reports. So, where do we go to find the authorised Queensland Reports? Can anyone tell me? What's the platform to find the Queensland Reports, the authorised edition?
Is it legislation.queensland.gov.au, John?
No. And bear in mind that when we talk about reports, we're talking about cases. So it won't be legislation. And the reason I'm saying that, Jackie's right. Melissa's close, but not quite. So Jackie, correct, the LexisNexis. The reason I'm mentioning Queensland Reports is this, that the Queensland Reports and a few other reports, the Commonwealth Law Reports, the Federal Law Reports, etc., are what we call the Authorised Reports. So later this evening, I'll show you some practice directions which mandate the requirement for lawyers to present an authorised decision rather than an unauthorised decision. So if you print something from Austlii, as good as it will be, it won't be well received by the court. They will likely return it to you and say, no, give me the authorised report. The problem is, and here's the catch, in order to get access to the authorised report, you need to have access to LexisNexis or contact the Supreme Court Library, who will provide you with the document, typically by email, but there's a limit on how much you can do for that. So last week, as I recall, I was trying to show you where the Queensland Reports are within LexisNexis and I wasn't getting it right. So I've now looked at it and I want to show you something which is a trap for me, and it may be a trap for you when you're looking at LexisNexis or other platforms. So let's now share the screen. If I've selected the correct screen, you should see the LexisNexis homepage. If you can just give me a nod or a thumbs up, yep, we're good with that. Okay, so here we'll see LexisNexis homepage through the university. It's not in my favourites, so we look further. And down the bottom, we have show more sources. We'll have a look at that. You may have noticed just above the show more sources were some unauthorised, some reports that were unreported, decisions of the Queensland Supreme Court. All right, so what we're looking for here is the Queensland Reports. So what you do is make sure that you have these red boxes at the top left-hand corner correct for what it is that you're after. And what we're looking for here is a particular source. So we're not browsing the sources, we've got to find the sources. And this is the problem I made last week. I didn't click from browse source across to find source. So now we go to find source, which is under the heading of source directory. We wait forever for this to come up. And under the topic of find sources, which is not working for me, is Queensland Reports. And there it is. Okay, so you'll see now we have the various sources available to you from LexisNexis. I usually go to the alphabet, and if we click on Q, that will bring up extremely slowly. I don't know why it's so slow. The Queensland Reports. So while we're waiting for that to happen, and I'll just double click that again and again. While we're waiting for that to come up, let's assume that we have a research topic where we want to find the latest case law in relation to summary judgment applications. So a summary judgment application is civil law, and it's an application that one will make if you seek to essentially obtain judgment by arguing that your opponent has no prospect of success in relation to the argument that they have raised. So finally, we now see the queue has come up, and over here we have Queensland Reports. So there are others, the Queensland Land Reports, Queensland Planning and Environment Law Reports, but it's the Queensland Reports that are the authorised reports. We'll click the Browse button, and now you'll see the Queensland Reports as they appear by year and volume. And the volume, you see here in 2016, there was 2016 1 QDR and 2016 2 QDR. It really means nothing when we're talking a digital age, but it was a reference to particular books or volumes of legislation as it was in the past. So let's go up to Quick Find. We're dealing with summary judgment applications. Now, you would know, after you've done a bit of research, that a particular rule that relates to summary judgments is 292 under the Uniform Civil Procedure Rules. So when you do your research, bear in mind that it's not just the legislation, it's not just the case law. You also need to consider the rules that apply to civil procedure or criminal procedure. You need to consider the regulations, and you need to consider practice directions. These are all very important things when it comes to legal research. So tonight, we're going to assume that you've been able to find that Rule 292 in the UCPR, the Uniform Civil Procedure Rules, is relevant to a summary judgment application. And you decide that a good way to search for recent Court of Appeal decisions in relation to summary judgment is to enter into the Quick Find search terms 292 and summary. Now, I haven't used inverted commas. Let's see how we go with that. Many of the search facilities now provide you to an opportunity for you to search by just the text. Okay, so here now we have 113 results, including from the Queensland Reports, but you'll see on the left-hand side we have an opportunity to narrow the topics, and we know that the topic that we're considering is civil proceedings. So if we click on that, we'll now find 43 results, and Q&I resources against Sino Iron from 2016. Here's a recent decision of Watson and Scott. And over on the right-hand side, and it's a Court of Appeal decision from December 2015, its source is the Queensland Report, so we know it's authorised, and it has the Q2 QDR. The QDR is the method of reporting the Queensland Reports. Over on the far right-hand side, this is a handy facility. The purple link provides you an opportunity to preview the document, and it gives you a quick summary of what it's about. And this is a case where the appellants appealed against an order dismissing their application for summary judgment. So they had sought summary judgment. They were unsuccessful. They believed that they should have been successful. So they went to the Court of Appeal to seek a decision in relation to it. Okay, so that's, if you like, a worked example on how you can use the Queensland Reports, the authorised case law from the Court of Appeal, the Queensland Supreme Court, and occasionally District Court, but it's primarily Supreme Court decisions. If we go back to the homepage for LexisNexis, you would recall that I showed you a few things last week involving, I think, the Australian legal words and phrases and Halsbury's, which is very important. And I did show you those things, didn't I? Just a little nod. I showed you Halsbury's. The Encyclopedic Australian Legal Dictionary is also very useful. Okay, let's now look at Westlaw. And Westlaw's very important for a number of things that you will use or should use regularly. I'll just move this across here so that I'm not doing what I did last week and typing in my contact details. Just try and find the screen. Okay, so while we're waiting for me to do this, if you could just unmute your microphone and tell us what you use Westlaw for. What are some of the important platforms? Any takers?
As a criteria.
What was that, Sarah? Was that Sarah who said something? No, it wasn't Sarah. I'm just looking to see.
Or can be a citator.
A citator, yes. Thank you. Was that? Yeah, I've got the small screen on the side, so I couldn't see who it was.
Oh, it's Mo.
Thank you, Samantha. So what's the citator in Westlaw? You should see that now on the screen. First point, excellent. Okay, so first point, we'll have a look at first point. What I like about Westlaw is a number of things. I'm just going to get you to mute your microphone. There's a bit of noise coming through. But a couple of things on Westlaw that are really very good. First point is the citator, case citator. It provides online case law research tools. It's got good summaries of information about cases, and it's pretty easy to use. The other ones that you really should become very familiar with are the Laws of Australia, which is similar to Halsbury's. It's the Westlaw version of Halsbury's. Now, I showed you the authorised reports in LexisNexis, which was the Queensland Reports. Westlaw also has authorised reports. Can you look at that screen and give me an example of one set of authorised reports, being one that you'll find in Westlaw? If the screen's too small print, let me know. Can anyone see a set of authorised reports on the front page of Westlaw?
Commonwealth law reports, John?
Exactly, Commonwealth law reports. So if you're citing a Commonwealth decision, while you can obtain the case from Jade or from Ostley or from a number of other platforms, if you want the authorised report, it's through Westlaw, it's a paid subscription, but you have access to it through the university. Other authorised reports through Westlaw are the federal court reports and the federal law reports and the federal court reports as well. Okay, some other things that you probably want to have a look at are things like the Australian legal journals or law journals and the Australian Legal Journals Index, and expert evidence is very good as well. And likewise, as we did in LexisNexis, there is access to unreported decisions. And there's some specialty areas like torts law review that would be relevant in some instances. So let's have a look at how we use Westlaw.
Excuse me, John, what would be in expert evidence? What would you utilise there?
Yeah, sure. If you're running a case, civil or crime, and you're looking to, and I'm just looking to stop the share. Okay, so you're running a case in civil law or criminal law, and you're dealing with experts, then having access to information about expert evidence would be a useful way of either bolstering your case or attacking your opponent's case. So it may be that your case revolves around the legitimacy of expert evidence in relation to, say, DNA. So by having access to those specialist reports, it gives you an opportunity to understand the way that experts go about preparing their report, the underlying assumptions that they're likely to make, the necessary qualifications that the expert should have in that area of practice, the breadth of practice for a particular area. In other words, you might be able to attack the expert evidence on the basis that whilst they have general knowledge expert knowledge in an area, the field of expertise is narrower than they profess to have expert evidence in. So expert evidence provides you with an opportunity to either bolster or attack your case or the opponent's case as it may be. I hope that answers the question. All right, I'll just go back to sharing the screen. And let's have a look at Westlaw. So if we go to the search button here, we have an opportunity to browse by product title, which is the default, but we can also go to content type or practice area or jurisdiction. Let's try content type, and you'll see that it comes up with cases and legislation particularly, but it might be journals or it might be the laws of Australia, which is the digest. If we go to case content, then we can expand by going through an advanced search using over here on the left hand side first point, or we can use a basic search, which is up here, returning to the basic search. And if we go into the basic search, let's type in balcony and fall, and this time let's go to first point, which is the usual citator. We'll just see what that comes up with. So it's a very simple search. And you'll see that it comes up with 7 results. And you'll see the words that you've typed in highlighted in yellow. The second case there, Lee and Rawson, might be the sort of case you're looking for in relation to injuries caused by falling through slats on balcony rails, for example. So that's a brief introduction to the way that you can use Westlaw. It's just one way of using Westlaw, but there are different links on different parts of the page. Again, I think the best way to do it is to play around with it. There are some useful links to show you how to use Westlaw. So for example, this one here, you can hover over it and it will give you information. First point, other details. And there are fact sheets which provide you with some useful information about the techniques that you need to engage in undertaking these studies. So I'm just calling up here Westlaw Help First Point, 3-page document. And I won't necessarily give you the links to these things, but I'd rather you found them on the website. And if you maybe print those or study those, you'll be able to learn this far more than I can demonstrate in a quick online demonstration. So that's basically how you use that search inquiry. If we go back to Westlaw, one other option or one other way to do this is to, on the left-hand side, use the drop-down, say, first point, which you'll gather is a very important one. And then at the bottom, on the left-hand side, you'll see an opportunity to select all of these areas of practice, or you might select a particular area. So if your research inquiry is in relation to family law, go into first point, select family law and child welfare. And if you're looking for a case called Smith, and you're dealing with Section 79 of the Family Law Act, you can undertake a search by including just a couple of key aspects of the search, and it should come up with some results relevant to those searches. And again, I'm sorry for the internet. So if you haven't been playing around with these different websites, I urge you to do so. Hopefully the internet will be much faster when you do. And there we have 114 searches relevant to that. But you can refine the search by putting in keywords, etc. Okay, so that's first point. If we go back to Westlaw homepage, as I mentioned, the Laws of Australia is very important and gives you a chance to expand, hitting the plus button. So you can search a particular area of practice, which is a commentary, a digest, or you can use the search button here to search the table of contents. Okay, so that's Westlaw. I'll stop the share. All right, any questions then about Westlaw or LexisNexis? All good? No questions coming through? Anybody want to make a comment about their research? I'm sure you've been doing a lot of research in the last 2 or 3 weeks as you build your toolkit. Does anyone wish to share any information, something that they've found which I haven't touched on, which is very useful? Okay. The next one is CCH. CCH is probably just fallen a little bit behind LexisNexis and Westlaw. It was very big when I first started, and it still is. It's still very, very good. So we'll just go into CCH now. I'm just going in via the university library. Has anyone had a look at CCH? Got a thumbs up? No? Really valuable information on CCH. Very good in family law and in commercial law, taxation, etc. So I'll just share the screen. And you should now see CCH as it's presented to you through the university library. So use Boolean connectors in CCH. You can use things like not or w/ and then a number. So, for example, w/15 returns documents within 15 words of each other. So if we do a basic search in, say, good and good, which is a family law case, then you'll see the important decision of Good and Good 2006 FLC. So it's not the so it's the Family Law Court of Australia. So that's a basic search, which will give you a lot of information. You can refine the search again, and another way of doing that is to look at particular topics, say family law. We go back to the top, choose family law. Then you can browse through the content, adding in search words such as property or earning capacity or earnings, things of that nature. All right, I won't go any further than that just at the moment. So we understand the difference now between authorised law reports and those that are not authorised. If it's not authorised, that means it doesn't mean it's worthless. Sometimes the authorised reports take a while to come through. The authorised reports are judicially approved, and the deciding judge has an opportunity to review the content, make any final corrections. There might be some tidying up of errors in citation, things of that nature. They can't make changes to change in any way the decision that they made, but they are entitled to make some changes which more clearly establish or express their intended meaning. So that's the authorised reports. So in Australia, High Court is, what's the name of the authorised reports for the High Court? Any takers? We're to look at them tonight. So you're going to tell me the name of the authorised report and where we find it. High Court of Australia. David?
Is that Commonwealth Law Report?
Yes, Commonwealth Law Reports. Thank you. And where do we find the Commonwealth Law Reports?
Westlaw, John.
Very good. Excellent. Federal Court. What's the authorised reports in the Federal Court?
Federal Court reports under Westlaw, John.
Very good. Thank you. And we all know the Queensland Supreme Court is LexisNexis. Queensland Reports. That's from 1958. Before that, it was called the State Reports of Queensland, between the turn of the century and 57. So if we look at AGLC 3, Rule 2.3.1, and I'll bring that up on the screen, that provides a statement about the authorised report being used as in preference to any other report. There are practice directions. So the Supreme Court is practice direction number 16 of 2013. The District Court is practice direction number 11 of 2013. And the Planning and Environment Court is practice direction number 12 of 213. So I'll just show you what these practice directions look like. They are very important in practice. So therefore, they're important as part of your research. Did I share the right screen? Can you see the practice direction there? Did I hit the right button? No, not yet.
No, someone's having a good dive there, mate.
Oh, that's my son diving in. I'll share the screen. This one should get it. That was at Noosa. You might see me in the background on that one too. All right, so here's the practice direction, 16 of 2013, Supreme Court citation of authority. Make sure you're aware of this one, because if in an assignment you cite an unauthorised decision, then you may not score as well as you would if you cite the authorised. So what we're looking to do is have you practice citing the authorised decision, because that's consistent with what you have to do in reality. And the authority for doing that is AGL C3 Rule 2.3.1, which I didn't show on the screen, but it's of course from the University of Melbourne, and the practice directions that I've mentioned there. In the Federal Court, we have practice direction number, Federal Court Practice Note CM2, which deals with the list of authorities, citation of cases for legislation and proceedings generally. So that's the counterpart for the federal sphere. And that's for the Federal Court of Australia. Practice direction revoked. There you go. So I better update my link. But the same effect. All right. Now you can ask for documents to be sent to you through the Central Queensland University Library. There is a form for doing so, and the library staff will track down the document for you. I'll just share the screen to show you what I mean. You may have already come across this. So that's the document delivery request form for our library. The Supreme Court Library has something similar. With the library, we also have a thing called Hein Online, H-E-I-N Online. Now you'll find this from the home page of the library. I'll just go straight to it to show you what it is. But this is a very valuable, Here we go again. Every time you go into a different service, you've got to re-establish your credentials. This is a valuable service if you're looking for articles from around the world, if you're looking at a specialised topic. So it's HEIN online.
That CQU form you've got there refers to staff and research higher degree students.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it might be something I have access to. If you do have it, could you, if there is a form for students, could you let me know? Because I had assumed that that would be available to you. But thank you for pointing that out. All right, so here's Hein Online. Again, free to you through the website. Now, just speaking of university research skills, the library does have its own Moodle site. Have you come across that? So this is the library, which I've double-clicked. So that's the University Research and Information Skills Moodle page. The librarians have changed, but that will show you some information about the research available to you.
I just put a link up in chat too, John. It goes directly to the law page on Moodle.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And lists every one of those directories we've been going through this evening, plus all the help and all the additional stuff from the library to do with law.
Oh, great. Thanks, Nicholas. So that's http://libguides, libguides or library.cqu.edu.au/law. Thank you. There is another thing that you can consider. It's called Informit. I'll just see if I can call it up on the website. No, the link isn't working terribly well. Have a look at INFORMIT, and it's a provider of information relevant to education, government, and corporate sectors. It professes to have an excellent understanding of the needs of researchers and students generally. And if you look at some comments about people and their information, how they use Informit, there are comments saying that I used to use Google, but now I use Informit. So, yeah, case studies. So if we go to a search for Informit, the example that I selected was this: bankruptcy and tracing, but not companies. We'll see what comes up with that. And you'll see that there are 4 articles in relation to equitable remedies in relation to misapplied company funds or tracing. Tracing is where you try to recover funds that have been somehow changed in character. So that's another opportunity for you to consider researching for articles. Now, we've talked about mostly the courts and the legislation. Just for tribunals, the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal, you can find information about cases of the tribunal through Authorized and the Supreme Court Library. Firstly, Authorized, you would have noticed that it's changed now. And so jurisdiction, Queensland, you'll have the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal and other bodies are there. So there's QCAT from 2009 onwards, some more recent decisions. and some other information. The Supreme Court Library has information from QCAT. Again, my clicker is taken. So here we have QCAT decisions, and there's some of the recent decisions that have come through. So you've got the QCAT decisions through the general QCAT and also some of the appeal decisions. Okay, so and QCAT, of course, just have a look at their website. I suppose I could say probably say our website to get a general idea of what QCAT does. All right, now I need to have a special thanks to Nicole Elliott for finding EndNote. Is Nicole with us tonight? Nicole is there. Thank you, Nicole. If I can give you a plug for finding that information about EndNote. Has it been working well for you?
Yeah, it's not been too bad. There's a few bugs that I've found, I think because the AGLC is a plug-in. It's not, not one of the standard ones. So it doesn't do the bibliography too well, separated up into the different sections, but I've been able to manage to work around it. I mostly like that it keeps all of my citations that I use over and over in the one place already done. So I just have to insert them and select it and insert rather than having to retype and all that sort of stuff.
Excellent. And to be honest, I haven't used EndNote, but it's been on my list for a couple of years now to do it. So you've given me the impetus to do it. So EndNote is a way for researchers and students to collect and store and reuse their references, as Nicole has mentioned. So it's well worth doing. There are other competitors to EndNote, Mendeley, Zotero, but they're very good ways of keeping track of material. All right, are there any questions then about what we've discussed tonight? Let me just digress for a moment, talk about Turnitin. There's been a few questions about Turnitin, people worried about plagiarism, and rightly so, because part of what we did at the start of the course was to ensure that you're well aware of plagiarism and the importance of not committing plagiarism. But just because you have a relatively high Turnitin score percentage-wise, that doesn't mean that that results in plagiarism. Turnitin really is a way of encouraging you to reference material, and that's what I would encourage you to do. So if you have referenced your material, it's not a problem. Also, if you've cut and paste, for example, large sections of legislation or extracts from a case, then that's going to account for a higher Turnitin score. Does anyone have any questions about Turnitin, or have they got any problems that they've encountered? No? All right. So just a reminder, as you're writing your material, we're looking for writing that is what I would describe as quality writing. If you look at page 307 of your textbook, down the bottom there's a think box, and I just highlighted this for myself as an example of what it is that you should think about when you're communicating as a lawyer. And what are your perceptions of the way in which lawyers communicate? And it wasn't long ago that we used to use jargonistic language. We'd use legalese. We'd have incomprehensible sentences. So that text box, that think box, is very useful reminder to use short sentences and to avoid the sort of language that we used to use, which was pompous, arrogant, jargonistic. That's the way that lawyers used to write. So I think did I give you, I did, I think on UCrew, like in about week 1, I said, what do you prefer, this or this? And the second alternative was like one word or one line, and the first just went on forever. So just remember to be efficient in your writing. And remember, when you're preparing your toolbox, to look at the threshold learning outcomes for lawyers, because that will have a bearing on the way in which you might wish to construct your toolbox. The threshold learning outcomes, and there's 6 of them. They are knowledge, ethics and professional practice. They are thinking skills, research skills, communication, collaboration, and self-management. I know that sounds more than 6, but it's actually 6 on page 26 of your text, so keep that in mind. So back in the 70s when I studied law school, everything was about knowledge. We didn't worry too much about the other things. But the toolbox that you prepare needs to encompass much more than that, and particularly research skills, something that we've really stressed in this course so far. I will just talk briefly about the toolbox. It's due on the 14th of September. I haven't checked yet. I suspect that some of you have probably already submitted your work. This is important. If you haven't submitted your work, please remember that there is a date by which it must be submitted. I expect you to submit it on time. Part of the reason for that is that you've known about this from day one. So if I receive a request for an extension saying something came up at work and I'm a bit busy this week, or haven't been feeling too well this week, don't be disappointed if I knock you back, because the response will be, yes, I understand, but you've got to build in those contingencies to make sure that you meet the deadline. And by the last few days, you should be 99% finished anyway. So just keep that in mind. There are penalties of 5% deduction per day for late submission. Now, this time there is a cutoff, and I will enforce the cutoff. So the cutoff is the 23rd of September. You'll lose 5% for every day after the 14th of September. Come the 23rd of September, that's it. I'll still encourage you to prepare your toolbox, because you need to have it for your later studies, and you'll need to have it for your briefing paper for the end of term. But in the toolbox, what we're looking for you to do is think, speak and act like a lawyer, and come up with your way of describing the process for solving legal problems. And it's really meant to be
personalised
for you. Very personalised, David. Yep. Look, we
can keep it quite directly from talking in the first-hand set and that personalised. Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. Look, my objective for this introduction to law subject is to get you all through, but to get you through with something that's actually useful, that you can use in the later subjects. So I do want you to know about legal research. I do want you to know about how to answer a legal question, and I want you to have something in this toolbox that works for you. So think about it in terms of preparing something that works for you first, and something that I think will be good second, because if it works for you, odds are I'll like it. I hope that makes some sense. So it's got to be a practical thing. And the other thing is the portfolio that you did in first semester, really practical. You can build on that as you go. So make sure it works for you. All right, any questions about that? There is a word limit. Do try to stick to that if you can. And at the bottom of the toolkit assessment, there's a video from Scott Beattie. There's an outline if you're really stuck for ideas, but you don't have to stick to that outline. I'd really like it to be something that is personalised for you. All right.
So John, is using charts and graphs and images fine, and maybe even links to external videos for memory jogging and things like that? That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. Again, that's probably the sort of thing that you'd want to do for yourself in practice. So if that works for you, I'll certainly encourage it.
Okay, because I just was digging around on the parliamentary website, the government parliamentary website, and I've come across a link, and I've put it up in the chat box. It's a multimedia section that's used for teaching and learning. And in there, they have all these videos and image libraries that really explain stuff so clearly on how legislation works, how the government runs, how this happens, how that happens, that I believe it's for primary school students. But in reality, I think anybody looking at those images would get a clarity that they may not have got any other way.
Absolutely, I agree. So that's the Parliamentary Education Office, and Nicholas has put up the website link. It's www.peo.gov.au/multimedia.html. So thank you for that, Nicholas. And yes, I do encourage you to find these things that work for you, that help to explain, provide a link, provide a flow chart, dot points if you want. So it's a departure from the way that I encourage you to write in the sample document, but this is really, let's roll up our sleeves and create something that's useful type thing. You do need to talk about some areas of law. Some of the examples are the doctrine of precedent, distinguishing a case, inductive reasoning, the rule of law, ratio dacendi obiter dicta, noting up. So, but choose something that is practical and works for you. Okay, any questions about that assignment? I know that's a very brief run through.
Can I clarify something about that?
Yes, Annie.
John. I had it in my head that the toolbox, so to me it was very process oriented. So I'm quite methodical in how I operate. So I tend to cover my bases by having a process, and each step in the process, directs me to certain things. When we talk about things like doctrine of precedent, obiter dicta, etc., are they things that we can kind of pull out of that? Like, does it work? I'm not being very clear, am I? Sorry. Does it work to have the structure as a process, and then the parts where we kind of hone in and focus on one or two things can be a part of those steps?
Yeah, look, and it's very hard to describe. So therefore, it's hard to come up with a single answer to this. But I think it is primarily a process-driven document. But within that, you need to weave some narrative about some of the doctrines relating to law, the rule of law, or legal positivism, or something along those lines. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
I think so. Thanks. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so next week we'll just catching up a bit. We'll talk about communication skills. We'll talk about interviewing clients, and we're working our way up to what I typically do in week 8 is brainstorming. We might be a week behind on that one, so we'll get there. All right, thank you very much. I'll stop the recording now, and we'll see you next week.